Hello, people of the internet, this is MandKXbox. I'm Alex, and this is the review that we have been waiting for a long time. The IS-7. This is the IS-7, the Tier 10 Russian heavy tank. Now, I have actually had this thing for quite a while, as you may be able to tell by the crew skills. I have had this thing for quite a long time, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 months, so not that long of a time, but you know, you get the idea. So I have had this thing for quite a while, and oh my god, if you learn how to drive this thing properly, you can just kick so much ass. It is unbelievable, like seriously unbelievable how much ass you can kick, and such a beating this thing can take as well. So yeah, I'll start off by running down through the stats and doing everything, and then kind of giving you a general overview of how the playstyle works, and then go into the gameplay itself. So, 2,150 hit points. Now, that isn't actually a lot for a tier 10. I'm just kind of generalising tier 10 in general here, but I mean, discounting the medium tanks, because they all have low health, and of course the artillery. If you look at the tank, some of the other tank destroyers, actually I don't think this has too much. No, 1,900, this has 1,950. Okay, so out of the tier 10 heavy tanks. So now I'm starting to look a bit stupid. So yeah, exactly, 2,200 for the T110E5. The IS-4 I'm sure has more than the IS-7, if I can fucking click on it. 2,500, so it certainly sits on the... I'm not even going to bother with the Frenchies, because they all have shit health pools. Yeah, 2,300, so it definitely sits on the lower end of the health pool in terms of the other tier 10 heavy tanks, but it doesn't really need much more than what it has. And I'll get into that later. So it has a weight load limit of 68.79 tons at the moment. This is how much it weighs. Nah, I could easily put more. I don't know, hang on, if I take a look here, I mean, I could put anything else on. I'm tempted to put improved vents on, but I am saving up for something else, so, you know, weight is not a problem. And it has a 1,050 horsepower engine, which means that going downhill, not on a straight, you'll see about 40 to 35 to 40 kilometers an hour on a flat surface, but going downhill you will definitely see that 59.6 kilometers an hour. I mean, I've overtaken Amex 50Bs going downhill in this thing. It's ridiculous, and it's just stupid how fast this thing can go. Traverse speed 28 degrees per second. It's not too good, but it is a heavy tank, bear in mind. And it's perfectly fine to be you know, I mean, it's not that bad of a traverse speed, but it's not amazing either. It's kind of in the middle. Now, here is the real selling point of the IS-7. The armour of both the turret and on the hull is ridiculous. Absolutely goddamn ridiculous. I mean, 150mm of frontal armor, well, you might be thinking to yourself, nah, that's pretty shit, to be honest. I mean, most things are going to go through that, like, go through it like a hot knife through butter. Yeah, but have you seen the angle on this? This is stupid. It's swept back at such a high angle. I don't know, I'm not even going to bother. I think that's more than 45 degrees. And it's kind of angled that way and that way as well, so... It's ridiculously well armoured. I'm easily guessing this... You need something with, I'd say maybe 260 to 270mm of penetration to get through the front of an IS-7 on the upper plate. Definitely. However, this lower plate here is a huge weak spot, and if you let people, they will shoot at you here. This is where you shoot an IS-7. There have been some people who have been stupid enough to try and shoot up here, and to be perfectly honest, I did kill an IS-7 once in my IS-3 by shooting him up here, but don't resort to this. This is not a good place to shoot an IS-7. It's too well armoured, too flat, and just bounces every fucking time. The lower plate is definitely the place to shoot an IS-7, if you can, of course. This part here, I don't actually know what this armour is, but from my experience, I've noticed that this little bit here seems to be more armoured than the upper plate and the lower plate, so I think this is like a sort of armoured bulk, if you wish. I don't really know. Now, the turret armour. This is basically American. The turret armor is basically American. 240 millimeters of frontal armor, 185 of side armor, and 94 millimeters of rear armor. And it's ridiculous. That 240 millimeters of armor, along with this stupid like dome sloping, means that you can take full advantage of hull down positions and just absolutely kick ass, because nothing can go through the front of you. Not even some tier 10 tank destroyers that fire gold at you can go through the front. It's stupid. And even on the side, if you see an IS-7 turning its turret, so if you're like this, and an IS-7 turns its turret that way, so this side is facing towards you, don't shoot at it, because that's still 185 millimeters of slopey, roundy armor that you have to get through. And it's just stupid. It's stupidly well armoured, the turret. I've just realised I forgot to mention the side and rear armour for the hull. The side armour is 150 like the front, however not as well armoured, but this entire section here is spaced armour. Which means you will see a lot of shots going straight into your side and just bouncing, not necessarily bouncing, but just getting eaten by this or getting eaten by your tracks. If you really ideally the place you want to aim is right here, just above the tracks, just below this hull part here, because this is all spaced armour, and likewise for the other side as well, and of course the tracks act as spaced armour as well. It has 100 millimeters of rear armor, which is more than the turret, and even that's sloped at maybe 30 degrees. I mean, if people shoot at you, your rear at about this angle, and they don't have a very high penetration gun, maybe 225 millimeters or less, more often than not, they'll just bounce straight off, because it's still 100 millimeters of armor angled at about that, and it's sloped back. So this thing just bounces shots like you would not believe. You will never see a tank, other than maybe the mouse, bounce more shots than this. It is stupidly well armoured, and that is a selling point of the IS-7. But of course, with this, you have to learn how to play it. This isn't a tank like you can just jump into and all of a sudden go, yeah, I know how to play this. Like maybe if you were to jump in the Stug. I mean, all tanks do require some degree of learning, but with the Stug or some lower tier tanks, you can just jump in them and go, yeah, I'll just go shoot at things and run off. And for the most part, with an IS-8, you will generally tend to pick up very quickly that you play it more like a medium than a heavy, because it has not very good armour, and it's very quick. So jumping from the IS-8 to the IS-7 will be a big learning curve, and to be perfectly honest, the first maybe 50 to 60 games that I played, actually no, that's a bit of an exaggeration, 30 to 40 games that I played in the IS-7, I sucked arse, because it's such a massive learning curve. You try and play it like the IS-8 because that's how you think the next tank is going to be like, and you get into the IS-7 and you're like, what the fuck is going on, I just keep dying. And you have to learn how to play the tank. You need to take the time to, if need be, you study how I play in the, I do end up dying, I have to admit, but it wasn't all in vain, and you'll see why. But if you study how I play in the upcoming video that I show you, or the upcoming clip of me playing in the IS-7, study that video, study how you play it, and get a really good feel of the tactics and how you play it. This is very, very much a heavy tank. This is not a kind of tank that you jump into like maybe the IS-3 and have the liberty to play a bit like a medium, a bit like a heavy tank. This is definitely a heavy tank that you can use to spearhead an attack, and you have to get that into your mind. If you get the opportunity, you need to play aggressively in this, but you can also play very, very defensively at the same time. Now, I'm not going to get into any of this. The turret traverse, I just said I wasn't going to get into any of it, and then go, there we go, straight into it. Turret traverse, 25 degrees per second. Not too good, and it doesn't really matter, because, like I said, most things that go around your flanks, they don't tend to penetrate your side, if you can play it well and whatever. The turret traverse isn't great, but it's not stupidly bad. The view range, as per standard with all tier 10s, apart from the M48 pattern, I think, which has 420 meters, it has a 400 meter view range, and the signal range, who gives a fuck. All I know is that it's good enough to reach all the way across the map, so really it makes no difference. Now, onto the business end of this tank. It has a 130mm gun. Now, to put this into perspective with you, I'm going to compare this gun to the IS-8's gun, because this is the one that you're going to be coming off with, and this is also just so happens to be the same gun that you get on the IS-4. So I might as well be comparing the two. Now, the IS-7's gun is a 130mm S70. The IS-8, however, gets a 122mm M62T2 gun. You can forget about that bit and forget about that bit, it's just the caliber that you're worrying about. So it has 8 more millimeters in diameter, if you wish, to this gun. Now, the trade-off that you get from going from the IS-8's gun to the IS-7's gun is that you do lose a little bit of the rate of fire. If you see here, 4.38 to 4.72, you don't really feel that too much, but it is, you know, it is something to take into consideration. It does fire slightly slower. You get 8 less millimeters of penetration whilst using standard ammo. You go from 258 over here to 250 over here. And even with gold ammo you only do 303, but you don't really need gold ammo, because if you're playing at tier 10 you should be aiming at weak spots regardless, unless you absolutely know you're going to penetrate them. Of course, the trade-off for losing this penetration and rate of fire is you do get 50 more alpha damage, which puts you up to 490. Now, this does mean that you will see 500 damage flashing up a lot more often than you might expect. Which means that you're almost, if there's someone stupid enough to take a tier 6 into a tier 10 game, for example, you will kill a tier 6 in 2 shots, and most tier 7s, if you roll high twice. For example, shooting at a IS, which only has 1,150, I think. I'm not too sure. If you roll high twice, you are perfectly capable of killing him in 2 shots. So that is the trade-off for losing those 8mm of penetration. Of course, it is slightly less accurate. 0.4 accuracy to 0.38. Aiming time exactly the same, but it does weigh less, which is kind of weird. That doesn't really make sense, but so on paper this looks like a really shit gun in comparison to the one that you get on the IS-8. But I think sometimes there are shit guns, and sometimes there are people who don't use the gun properly. For example, in a tier 10 game, if you go around shooting at the front of mouses, with this gun, or with this gun for that matter, you're not going to have a very good time. At tier 10 you should be aiming at weak spots anyway, and that 250mm of penetration is more than enough to go through the front of them. So, yeah. The turret been through, engine been through, tracks been through, radio, no one cares. On to equipment. So, I definitely suggest a gun rammer. Definitely. I think at the moment with my 100% crew and a gun rammer, I have got the reload down to something like 11 seconds, which is very, very good, which means you can make a defensive stand if you have to. Putting a shot that can do 500 damage every 11 seconds, that's nearly, I'm trying to think, that's nearly, I was about to say nearly 5,000 damage, but it's not. That's nearly 3,000 damage a minute. Very, very nearly 3,000 damage a minute that you can do. Of course, I am training Brothers in Arms on my crew, and I do suggest getting improved vents. However, I don't have them on at the moment because I am saving up for a lot of things. Those of you with a keen eye will notice that I have the SU-100, and I also have the AMX-12T. Those are the new additions to my garage. So yeah, I am trying to save up for something else as well. Vertical stabilizers. Definitely a must-have for the IS-7, vertical stabilizers, so you can get that 3.4 second aiming time down, because I wouldn't say it lets you down sometimes, but sometimes it does get a bit annoying because you wish you could have put more shots off, or you wish you could have done this, that and the other. So, it is very kind of situational, but I would always recommend getting vertical stabilizers no matter what. Now, something I have been doing recently is, as well as loading standard armor piercing, I've loaded a small amount of high explosive rounds. And the reason for this is, it just saves you spending, how much does the shell cost? Let's take a gander. 1,118. It saves you from spending 1,118 credits for shooting someone who's on maybe 10 hit points. or if you're shooting at artillery, or if you need to reset a cap, for example. Not many people know this, but to reset a cap you have to do damage. Not physical damage like causing hit point damage, but damage. You can cause hit point damage, but you need to cause damage full stop. If you fire high explosive at someone, you are almost guaranteed to do damage. Even if it's 2 or 3 damage, you will reset the cap. And a lot of the time, if it's a one-on-one, and I'm dead and there's someone else on the other team, on our team, I will tell them, track him, don't try and damage him, because if you try and damage him and miss or you bounce, then you could lose the game. Always try and track if it's a very close game, or shoot high explosive at them, preferably at a weak spot, like, don't shoot high explosive right on the gun mantlet here, because you're not going to do anything. Certainly not. But yeah, high explosive, always a must. I always carry high explosive now on most of my tanks, and it has saved me a couple of times. I have to admit, it has saved me. It's especially good for tracking tank destroyers and whatnot coming around corners. So yeah, definitely always carry a bit of high explosive along with your armor piercing. Of course, standard setup, I'm not going to explain why I've got my things in this particular order, because I've explained it in many videos beforehand. Crew skills! Now, repairs, stack repairs for your first crew skill on the IS-7. Definitely. The amount of times it has saved me from spending 3,000 credits on getting my tracks back up is unbelievable. Seriously, if you have repairs stacked on all of your crew, your tracks get blown off within 4 or 5 seconds. You've got them back up again. And that's in comparison to maybe waiting 10 or 15 seconds to get them back up again. And that can make all the difference. Having your tracks back up in a short amount of time as possible is always a good thing. It's never not a good thing. Second crew skill, I would stack Brothers in Arms. That's purely because then it makes this repairs better, and also makes everything about the tank better as well. So the loader will load the gun faster and will be slightly more accurate. Actually, it's not going to be more accurate because that's the gun. What am I talking about? He'll aim slightly faster. He'll fire slightly faster. The commander will be able to see slightly further. The driver will make better use of engine power, so forth. So it just makes the whole tank better in general. So yeah, and like I said, of course, if you've got vents on as well, I think I guessed or estimated that you could get the rate of fire to about 10 rounds a minute if you had a gun rammer, vents, 10 rounds a minute, no, that's stupid. The reload time to about 10 seconds if you had a rammer, vents, and Brothers in Arms stacked. That was just me kind of guessing and calculating slightly. I have no idea. I really have no idea. Other crew skills you might want to consider, I don't know, I'm kind of tempted to say that once this has reached 100% to swap out Brothers in Arms, not Brothers in Arms, repairs over here for Sixth Sense, or just train it as my third crew skill. Of course it would take longer, but I don't know. So yeah, that was, this is definitely an awesome tanking tank. And I will show you some examples of my playstyle and how I think everyone should play this tank, because it works for me and it works for most IS-7 drivers who I have come up against, of course. I mean, tactics you might want to use for this: side scraping, making use of hold down positions, sort of taking advantage of people's weaknesses, just using this awesome front armor. So yeah, so that's enough about me. That's enough of me blabbering on about this tank. Now I will show you some a great example of how this tank can just tank everything. So here we are on the I'm in my IS-7, of course. Had a bit of a brain fart there. I'm top tier. It's on Lakeville. Now there are only 3 enemy tier 10s, but they are quite dangerous, heavily armoured tier 10s. E100, IS-4, Object 268 is not too heavily armoured, but it has a massive, nasty gun that no one wants to get in the way of. Thankfully, I only come up against the E100 and IS-4. They do have quite some well-armoured tanks on the enemy team, however. They do have an E75, of course, IS-4 and E100, like I've already said. ST1, I've come to the conclusion it's ST1, because if it was STI that would imply that it's a sexually transmitted infection, so I'm pretty sure it's ST1. They have a VK4502B and 2 Tiger 2s. Now, they are very well armoured tanks on the enemy team. And I don't think I've got XVM running on this. I did beforehand. Unfortunately, I can't show you the stats for whatever reason. So I'm heading out over here because I basically made the decision that I'm top tier heavy tank. I'm not going to go through Noob Creek and sort of waste my my resource here. So I'm going to go try and tank it out over here. Now I want to get as close. I want to see if I can make use of the speed that I've got. Now I'm not going very fast at the moment, as you can see, but this thing can reach fairly good speeds. So I'm trying to make use of getting out over to this position out over here. As fast as I bloody can, to be perfectly honest, because I want to see if I can tank all of these shots, see if I can really put the pressure on the enemy. Now, there's not a lot of us that have gone into the town here, and a lot of us actually end up dying. So, yeah, but my death is not going to be in vain here. So I pop around the corner over here, and oh shit, E100, he is only using the 128mm. I was expecting him to be using the bigger one. Now, right here, this is where the first sort of example of how to play the IS-7 comes into play. This is side scraping. Now, I'm not doing it very well here, however I do improve. This was literally the first game I played on World of Tanks. This was about 3 days ago. This is the first game that I played that day, so I need to warm my brain up. Ideally, I should have been side scraping off like this, but I'm doing it off like this. Now, so this isn't the best example of side scraping, but I do get a better example when I'm off up over here. Anyway, so I begin to side scrape slightly off here, and I'm aiming for the lower plate on the E100, and oh, I didn't let the shot aim, and it just smashes into the car out over here. So I'm reversing again, trying to tease him to make a shot. Oh, and he slams on straight into my ammo rack. That is a problem that you will face with the IS-7, that it does seem to get ammo racked fairly easily, so I would try and stack wet ammo rack or something, I don't know. So as you can see, I just absorbed a shot from the Tiger 2 there. Now I basically decided at this point I'm not going to take my chances out over here. I need to go and support up top here. This could have been a big mistake. This could have very well been a big mistake. Now I plant a shot there, and luckily he blows my tracks off, and you will see this a lot. Now you can see right here how fast my tracks get back up, and there we are, side scraping again. Just angling your armor like that. Now usually on tanks with a piked nose it's not the best idea to do that, but with the IS-7 you are perfectly capable of doing so. Now these past 2 shots that I fired, I've blind fired, and you know, it's not the best idea, but it definitely does work. So looking for the shot and plant another one into the ST1. So I'm doing some very effective side scraping off here and just tanking all of these shots. I'm not sure if you can see them here, but they are all just bouncing off the front here, and they're either bouncing off the front here or my tracks are just eating it. So this is why the IS-7 is such a dangerous and formidable enemy. So I move up, I deem it safe to move up, and there we go, side scraped again. And like I said, the ST1, he is using the M62T2 that the IS-8 uses, so he does have 258mm of penetration, and you know, like I said, my side is 150mm. I think that shot went in, actually. I'm not too sure, but I think that shot went in. So that shot is, you know, I've clearly got a very high amount of armor there. So the T-44 goes round. And in all honesty, I think I spend too long looking at this guy. Now I think he tries to plant a shot into my turret here, but I decide to move back and make him rush his shot. Smash another one into the IS-4, and as you can see, right there, the T-44 tried to plant a shot up my arse, and it just bounced straight off. And you'll be surprised how often that happens. Now I back off to try and stop the T-44 planting a shot into me, and at this point I know I'm going to die at this point. I'm just trying to see how long I can put them off, because I know that there's this huge advancement over here. So if I can just keep these guys distracted for as long as I possibly can. And if you can see, I'm holding myself off against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 enemy tanks. And there we go, now I start taking shots from the rear, and I think this is where I begin to just die. But it's not in vain, because I held all of these guys off long enough for our team to start capping and win the game. I get the feeling they started to resort to gold here, but they could have just planted a nice shot into my lower plate. Of course, I don't know. I see the E100 isn't looking at me, and exactly, there you go, right again. Another shot planted straight into my side, another one planted into my side, and they all just bounce every time. And I'm still bouncing shots. This is why the IS-7 is such an awesome fighting machine of death. And there you go, 564 damage I just did, and any second now, there we go. E100 killed me. Now, I think I did somewhere around 5,000 damage. As you can see here, I did 534, but I think there's another number being hidden by the 6 here, and at this point, I'm just cycling through all the enemies, so I'm just kind of cycling through all the people here, and I can see that we're capping. So although, yes, I did die, the fact that I was there tanking all of those shots, and basically holding a massive defensive line on my own, meant that my team was able to flank right the way around and push through the valley and capture the base and win. So, being in the IS-7 isn't necessarily always all about pushing through, doing massive amounts of damage. I mean, I did do a lot of damage this game, but it's not about doing massive amounts of damage. It's not about pushing through to the cap. It's not about killing everyone. Sometimes it's about thinking and using your brain and looking at what's on the map, and saying, okay, well, I've got the most armor here. How can I just make full advantage of this? If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm not. There could be some things I could have done differently, but at the end of the day, there were 7 tanks around me. I was probably going to die either way, and the only other person that was with me was a Lorraine 40T. That survived, of course. I mean, we had an Object 140, E75 IS-3, and a Tiger 2, and a T-28 prototype that came down here with me as well, I think, pardon me. So there really wasn't a lot that I was going to do on my own. So the fact that I survived as long as I did really shows you the survivability and the damage and the punishment this IS-7 can put out. Okay, so now that this replay is over, we're going to go look at some post-game stats. And I am back with the post-game stats right now. So as you can see, we won. No, I'm just kidding. So I got 55,000, I forgot how to maths, 55,724 credits and 1,634 experience, doubled. Now, of course, this doesn't take into consideration the fact that I basically got our team winning. You know, I basically had our team won. I basically won the game for our team. I really worded that phrase badly. So yeah, as you can see, we did massive amounts of damage. I mean, we got damage upon our spottings, spotting for some tanks here. I don't know how I spotted the Panther 2, I didn't even realise there was one there. But as you can see, we absolutely ripped to shreds these tanks. I mean, 564 damage to the VK, 442 to the E100, ST1, 1,512 from 3 shots, 485 to the Panzer KPFW, oh, Panzerkampfwagen VIBT, 6BT, the fuck if I know. I'm assuming that's the E75. Then we put 4 shots into the IS-4 doing 2,030 damage, and then of course we got 1 shot into the T-44 doing 309. That was a kill. If we look over here on the team score, if we switch to experience, yeah, no, for damage done, I did not come top, I don't think. Where the fuck am I? Oh no, hang on. Yeah, I came top for damage done. That was 5,342 damage that I did that game. And I died. That's more than most of the tanks on the enemy team and on this team. I mean, this Object 268 should have done far more than 2,023 damage. But this really shows you how much punishment the IS-7 can put out. Now, if you notice, I didn't really take my chances. I always took time on my shots, aiming for weak spots. I didn't just kind of blast away at people. I think I did twice. And that was blind shots, and that's because I was getting overwhelmed and I was just trying to think quick. But for the most part, I took my time aiming for shots, and sometimes RNG beat me. Like the first shot I put down at the E100 trying to aim for his lower plate. Exactly, shot went wide and hit a car. It was a bit of a wild shot, but yeah. Here's the real kicker. So, tier 10 game, I made a profit of 14,000 credits, which is stupid. Out of the 12 shots that I fired, I managed to hit 11, and 11 penetrated, of course, doing the 5,342 damage. Hits received 23. 23 shots I took. Only 10 of them penetrated, and the other 13 didn't, giving me a resulting in a 9,880 potential damage I took, which is a stupidly large amount, but not the most amount that I've ever taken. I think in one game I took something about 13,000 damage, and it's not surprising you will see high amounts of potential damage received if you can play your IS-7 correctly. So yeah. Enemies detected 1, enemies destroyed, no, enemies damaged 6, enemies destroyed 1, and I did 839 spotting damage. So yeah, all in all, this was an absolutely amazing game for me. Definitely, I think how I played got our team to win, let our team win. But this was really a testament to show you how much damage and how much of a beating the IS-7 can take, and how many shots you can just tank with this thing. So yeah, so this has been MandKXbox with a review of the IS-7 Tier 10 Heavy Tank.